Kings, queens, and in-betweens, welcome back to the City Boys podcast. On this episode, we have no game to cover, so we are going to be doing the rounds on the contracts, focusing on our departing players, as well as a sweet treat at the end. I love a sweet treat personally.
Sweet treat.
It's going to be our MLS Cup predictions, so stick with us until the end to find out who we think is going to win the MLS Cup. Before we get into the conversations, though, let me introduce myself and my co-hosts. My name is Ethan Thorne, and I am joined by two of my best friends in the whole wide world. I'm going to kick it to Grayson first because we are wearing the same hoodie. Grayson, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. It's getting chilly out, so it's time to break out the City Boys official hoodies. Uh,
Okay.
and I've been looking for this one. I didn't realize it was deeply packed away under my bed in a space bag. So I'm glad to break it back out. It's the season.
'Tis the
Um,
season.
I had a pretty good weekend. Got to go to the City 2 game. We should. I don't want to talk about it much, but I will say. That was a hard one. That was a brutal game. I honestly love going to the game when it was pouring rain. It's just an atmosphere.
It
But
is great.
that game was pretty hard to watch, not gonna lie. It was a toughie. But I had a good time hanging out with Jacob, our friend Katie, and my buddy Eric down at the game. Got to see Tom Franklin once again. Frankly, Tom Franklin once again, and a bunch of other friends. Hung out with Chris over at Schlafly for a little bit. Schlafly. I've actually never been there other than tailgate, so it was kind of weird to go inside. It was pretty nice in there. Kind
That's
of see
cool.
why the Luligans hang out there. So. Uh, Played a little bit of golf today, hit a little par three, but it was actually like a par two. Like most of the holes were par two. So that was
Hmm.
not good for my score, but pretty fun. We were playing off mats today because it was pretty soggy. And those mats it was like a water bed. Like they were just floating on top of water. It was rough, but a lot of fun. I had a great time. Jacob, how was your weekend, buddy?
Yeah, my weekend was jam-packed full. I went Friday night with Katie to see the taping for Nikki Glazer's Hulu special, which will be coming out whenever it comes out on Hulu, probably in like a year since it literally got taped this weekend.
A lot of editing.
Um, you might catch me because I was second row,
Ooh.
so be on the looks for your boy.
And like off to the side. I feel like the camera angle is going to be pointed directly at Jacob. Like
At
for real.
some point, if I make an appearance, DM us with a screenshot saying you saw me because I'll be on the lookout too. Saturday on some real nerdy stuff. I played D&D for like 12 hours. It was sick.
Heck yeah.
And then Sunday went and saw the game with Grayson and Katie, like he had said, and it was a great time. Also got to see the entire Thornton fam minus Ethan. So shout out to them. Shout out the moms.
Hey, we ran into
Um,
Joey Zanaboni too. We got to hang out with the lad for a little bit.
The legend.
Saw Joey Z had a fantastic hot dog in the middle of halftime, which
Pretty damn
was
good.
it was pretty needed. The pregame beverages as well as the in-game beverages had started to hit me a little hard, so the hot dog definitely revived my evening in a very wet, cold um, loss of a City 2 playoff game, which sucks, but we go again in 4 months,
Ugh.
I think.
It was
Dang,
hard.
that is a quick
Like
turnaround.
the clock was winding down in the match, and I was like, just thinking to myself, it's gonna be a while till I'm back at City Park, and that made my night
Sucks.
much worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, that feeling it hits heavy. It hits heavy like a Mike Tyson uppercut, man. It is a brutal feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you didn't catch that, City Two's season came to a close on the weekend. They were upset by Minnesota United FC 2. Yeah, power to you guys for being out there in the rain. It was pouring down at some points.
I
Yeah.
was kidded for the weather. Like I looked
You can see in the thumbnail.
very, very water resistant to say the least. But yeah, the loss hurt more than the cold rain did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ethan,
Well,
what did you get
boys,
up to this weekend?
yeah, I was gonna say I myself had a fun weekend. Me and wifey went on a very fun date to go catch a magic show in like a very old Victorian home. Yeah, it's the
That's
season, like you
crazy.
said, Grayson. It's spooky season, so went and caught a magic show in a haunted mansion. I think what it was. That was really fun.
That's
Sunday
awesome.
night, hunkered down, watched a City 2 game after enjoying some delicious Peruvian cuisine. If I
Mm.
can use this platform for anything,
Ooh,
let it be to encourage you to try some Peruvian cuisine. Trista enjoyed some lomo saltado, and I loved the ají de gallina that I had. I know that's two of Jacob's favorite meals as well from the Peruvian region. Into the week, though, I have been kind of itching to follow up on our last episode. We had, I don't want to say the fluff, right? But we had the header of the soccer game that didn't prevent us from talking about the contracts, but I think it slowed our mind for the contracts. By the time we got to contract talk, our mouths had spoken more than enough words for that time. So that is going to be this episode. We are going to be breaking down in depth St. Louis City SC's roster moves going into this offseason. We talked pretty at length in our last episode about the contracts that were exercised by St. Louis City. But just to recap those really quickly, St. Louis City exercised the contracts on Chris Durkin, Sangbin Jong, Jao Klaus, Brendan McSorley, Christian Olivares, Yaziela Roscoe, and Miguel Perez. From what I remember, generally the sentiment was pretty satisfied with those exercised options, right, fellas?
yeah, there was only two things I really wanted to touch on for roster building purposes coming from the people that we did re-sign. Because we also didn't really dive into Roman Berkey that much as well. And I think there's some big implications about what the roster next season is going to look like. Because one, we did buy down Klaus from a DP to a TAM player that was part of that option that we picked up. So that did bring him down. So it freed up another DP spot. But that DP spot was immediately taken up by Roman Berkey as part of his contract negotiation. Um, they re-signed him as a DP. So we still have two DPs. We still have room for one more in the offseason. And there was an issue with who would become a DP, and that would be Henry Kessler. That's something we can dive into in a little bit, but I just wanted to touch on Jack Klaus and Roman Berkey as re-signings that had some big changes for our roster and how it's gonna load out for next season.
Jacob, do you have any strong feelings about the designated title to either Zhao Klaus or Roman Berkey?
I think Roman Berkey's deserving of a DP slot for this team. It's a fun game to play now that Klaus isn't technically a DP striker, what we could do with the third and final DP slot, or if we build towards a U22 initiative style roster, which is similar to what we had this past season
Yep.
and saw similar levels of success to a DP style roster from year two. So you take that with how you want it. Um, but having the third DP slot opens us up to, I think, sign a DP midfielder, whether that be attacking or defensively. I
Mm,
wouldn't necessarily want a DP center back, which is what Henry Kessler would end up becoming.
yeah.
Or I don't really see the need to have a DP outside back, which is kind of where we're lacking on the depth chart right now as well. So a midfielder, and then if we do end up signing like a DP level striker, then do we switch to a two striker formation because Klaus is so integral to the way we attack? Does Klaus get dropped and we're paying him a lot of money to come off the bench?
Mm.
I don't
Just
know.
all these
Yeah.
great questions that I
If
have no
only,
answers to.
yeah, if only there was some way for us to talk about it in a long conversation that other people can be a part of as well. That would be so nice.
For me, if we're gonna sign another DP, I could see it being a midfielder, like you said, and it would have to be a defensive midfielder. Um, or I could see it being a winger of some sorts.
Yeah.
We are losing Rasmus Alm, so right now on the right wing, we only have one out and out winger, which is Sangbin Jong. We've seen Betcher, we've seen Toykert play there, but I don't think either of them really fit there. We have seen Celio Pompeu play on the right wing as well as Brendan McSorley, I think could also play over there. Mackay Joyner, I think, might be capable of playing both sides. I haven't really seen him play on the right too much, but he's probably capable. But there is some room. And this season, we lacked a lot of goals from our wingers. That's something that I saw get talked about quite a bit. Pompeu had a couple really nice goals, but not consistently enough to be a dangerous threat off. And a lot of times he came off the bench too. So it'll be interesting to see if that's something we splash some cash on.
Well, yeah, Grayson, I think that is a lot of questions that's on City fans' minds right now, which is what position will we target for that either final very coveted designated player role, or will it be another U22 player? Personally, I hope that we go for another designated player because to me, that designation doesn't mean all that much at the end of the day. It's the on-field contributions that count. So if it's Zhao Klaus, it's a designated player or a TAM player or Roman Berkey, even Marcel Hartel, if they are working and earning their contract, and I'm going to be extremely satisfied with their designation on the salary papers. But if we are going to sign another DP, I'm going to throw a name in the ring, even though he is definitely locked up in San Diego right now. I would love a DP number 6 in Yepe Tverskov. I think that is the kind of player profile that St. Louis City needs to add. We've seen where Chris Durkin has been probably at his best when sitting in front of the two center backs. So if we could find a player that can pull the strings similar to Edu Lovin from that position, I think St. Louis City would be just so much better off.
Yeah, I have
So
to agree that that's definitely a name that I've been watching all season and have been just jealous. I've been very jealous because
yeah,
yeah, San Diego's midfield is definitely one to emulate, one to build from. And yes, Sarakov has been instrumental in the backfield for them. So I do agree. I think that's a good pick. That's a good pick.
thank you. Thank you. Well, let's get into the players who St. Louis City did not exercise their contracts on. And, gentlemen, I think that we rip the band aid right away and we talk about the big ticket item on this list, and that is going to be Henry Kessler. He currently is renegotiating with the club. So we could see Henry Kessler in a St. Louis City uniform once again. However, the current contract setup that he was on would have put him at a DP level salary going into this season, and that was just not going to happen. Currently, when the season ended, his compensation is the word that I was looking for was $1.3 million. So a pretty hefty figure for Henry Kessler. What do you guys want to see here? What do we want to see? Is Henry Kessler coming back? Is he going to be another TAM player for St. Louis City? What do you guys think? Jacob, what is your opinion on Henry Kessler?
My opinion on Henry Kessler is he's a great ball player. He's a fantastic center back. I have fond dreams of him and Falu Fall playing next to each other in a city jersey.
Facts. 5 and 95.
I don't want, I do care about what your contract designation puts you towards as far as roster building
Mhm.
because it's very rare that your center back has a 20 goal season or even a 10 assist season
Yeah.
Mr.
or
Marcanic.
10 plus. clean sheet season, which is on the flip end. If you're not scoring them, you better be preventing them.
Mm.
Um, so no, I don't want to make him a DP because that really limits our options for building the roster on the front end, which right now we're lacking on paper. We don't have depth like at all at the moment anywhere on the field. Um, so yeah, short but sweet, no, I don't want to re-sign him as a DP. I do want to re-sign him though.
So you do want him back on the
Um,
team, just not at a DP salary.
yeah, I also don't necessarily think he's earned it in City Red either. Like he's been good. He's also been hurt a
It's
lot,
fair. Yeah, I think
which
that's harsh
was
but
a
fair.
He's
pretty
been
big
on a couple
gripe with
highlight reels.
Nielsen.
That's true. That's true. We were talking about that before the game, like with a couple other fans, but I miss Nelson. I love him so much. I miss him. But I also agree. I don't. I think that was a good move to let him go. So it is what it is. Uh, for Kessler, for me, I think if we could get him into a TAM spot, I think that might be one of the only ways we'd be able to convince him to stay is by giving him one of those TAM roles. And when we were looking at the roster before the video, before this episode, there's a couple players that I think we could move off of TAM designation um, that we could, use better on a player like Kessler, a player who needs big money. Otherwise, we aren't going to be able to keep him. And one of the players that came to mind was Thomas Ostrich. I think Thomas Ostrich is very good, very valuable to this team. He kind of can play anywhere in the midfield. He can even play next to Leuven. We've seen him play as the creative midfielder where Leuven would play when Leuven was out, and we've seen him play the 10 very successfully. Play the 10 this year, but now that we've locked in um, this powerful starting 11 near the end of the season, it seems like Thomas Ostrich misses out on that starting 11, and I don't think we should have a TAM player missing out on our starting 11. And right now there's
Mm.
two. Right now there's two, and that's him and Seti Toikert. And in Toikert's defense, he's been injured for the latter end of the season. But at the same time, I don't know where he would fit in that starting lineup without it being out of position. And I just, once again, like I do like Toikert. I There's a lot of questions in the air surrounding him, and I think he's the one with the answers. So we got to see him on the field.
I'm thinking that I want Henry Kessler back in the team because he is a very good player, a good defender, and has had inconsistent moments last season, especially when it comes to availability. I think that his case would be a lot stronger if he were a top MLS center back, like we were seeing glimpses of after we signed him. So I think if he was on a short-term contract last season, like Sang Bin Jong, he had a better argument for that TAM contract. But I think kind of like Jacob said, his performances haven't necessarily earned that high level contract where he's earning the money that he is earning on our roster. And it's not to say I don't want to. I'm not hating on man's pockets. I want him to make as much money as possible. To be clear, but I think if
So
that's at St. Louis City, I think he might find that at another club. I think that we've talked in the group chat about him being a championship level player. And I think that would be a good move for him. I think that a move outside of the United States could see him getting more chances in the national team as well. So I'm not 100% sure what will happen with Henry Kessler. I would like it if he stayed. It seems like he loves the city, loves the club. I also wouldn't hate it if he left. I think that bodes well for his national team prospects and potentially for himself.
if it were up to me and it was a choice between Henry Kessler or Cedric Toyshirt as the TAM player, same contract, same money, I'd rather give that money to Henry Kessler.
Grayson, where do you stand on that?
I think that's definitely fair. I mean, but at the same time, we haven't seen Toiker for a long
I'm
time.
I'm gonna agree with Jacob though. If I had to would you rather this,
Yeah.
I would pick Kessler as well, I think.
Yeah. And like I just at the same time I also agree with a lot of fan sentiments that we need to revamp this roster. We can't just field the same 11 next year and
Yeah.
expect to make the playoffs.
Mhm.
And I think freeing up some space in the offense is gonna be a painful shift in what City looks like, but I think it's a shift that needs to happen.
That's kind
So
of I think
yeah, we'll see.
Jacob's logic here on picking Henry Kessler over Cedric Toiker because I think we have a proven defender that fits into St. Louis City's system and complements a U22 player like Falou Fall very well versus Cedric Toikert, who is a little bit older and showed glimpses but never had lived up to
Um,
the figure.
but I
I
was
mean,
Toikert's contract is up in June of 2026, so we
Yeah.
still have him for half the season of this next season. So we can renegotiate, you know, right now. They're probably focused on other stuff, but those talks are coming up, and I'd be interested in what St. Louis City sees Toikert's value as.
really, my logic to it is right now, Cedric Toyshirt doesn't have a starting spot in the lineup with how we look right now, and
Yep.
Henry Kessler does.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think whether even if it is a rotation between him and Timo Baumgartel or Timo Baumgartel and Flufall, I agree with you, Jacob. I think that right now it's Sangbin Jong in the starting right mid spot and not leaving much room for Mr. Toiker.
Mr. Toikert.
Well, we have a little less hot button player, but still a hot button player after that. We're going to move into Michael Venzel, gentlemen, mostly featured on City 2 and was their captain for a little while. He's dealing with an injury at the moment, but his contract will not be picked up for the first team as well. I remember Jacob mentioning that he seems like a player with a lot of potential, and I agree on that. Jacob, why don't you extrapolate on that?
It touches back on what I talked about last week with him and his potential. He started a match for the senior side in this last season with JGR as his center back partner. And it was a match in which both of them looked fantastic. And we even had the conversation of this. This was also pre-follow fall, by the way. That this could be the center back pairing of the future. We still have JGR on contract. He's out on loan. So JGR at the moment does look like a part of the longer, farther away city future than 2026 is. Um, but yeah, Wenzel, he showed enough for me to re-sign him and keep developing him at City 2 and even throwing him in when inevitably we do have injuries on the back line because we haven't had a
Mhm.
season where we haven't had backline injuries. Um, and it would be tough as a fan to see him go have success for another club in the MLS when he was right there on our in our pocketbooks the whole time and we just let him go for the free. How do you feel about him, Grayson?
I do like Venzel. I think I'm kind of working with like a pretty small sample size of how often we got to see him, but he really did impress me with his debut. What is that? Not this recent season, but I think the season before that is when we saw his debut. Um, I always really liked him. I thought he plays with a lot of confidence, with a lot of aggression, and I feel like he's got a pretty high potential as well. And I was hoping he'd be one that would stick around City for a long time. I kind of rate him near the skill level of Hebert. I think Hebert is better, but I think it's close, and that tail could skip. That yeah, that scale could tip at any second. Um, towards Wenzel. So I just really wish we got to see him play more, but at the same time, center back at St. Louis City is such a big problem spot that um, I don't think plugging in a young center back is necessarily the answer. I think maybe especially if we're getting rid of Kessler, we should find somebody who's knows their way around MLS, or at least has some success at a pretty high level. So I like
Okay.
Wenzel, but yeah, it's kind of hard to argue for depth center backs, especially if we are keeping Hebert and Yarrow. If we were getting rid of
Mm.
Yarrow, I think Wenzel has a lot easier of a route into the club and getting playing time, especially with JGR out on loan too. So it's a hard one.
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys that he is a high ceiling kind of player right now. He still has plenty of room to develop and be a solid first team MLS center back. Right now, I think this might be the right move for St. Louis City, in my opinion, because I think that we have another good center back on the second team in Gabi Makina. I rate him very highly and think that he could very well play a very similar role to that Michael Wenzel did in the past couple of seasons in the on the first team. And I also agree that we might be hurting at depth for center back next year unless we have some good offseason moves, which could very well happen. So I don't know. To wrap up the Michael Wenzel conversation, I'm going to ask a yes or no question for us to answer on whether or not we think St. Louis City made the right decision by declining his contract option. So my answer is yes. I do think St. Louis City made the right option or the right decision. I think I know your guys' answers.
Jacob, you go.
I wanted to go last.
I can
In
go
a one word answer.
without knowing all the details of the contract and like how much he'd be getting paid with the option or whatever. I think it's all right. I'm not gonna say yes. I think
So
it's
a light
fine.
yes, a light yes,
It's like
yes
we're
light
gonna
for
be okay.
Grayson.
It's not like we're losing Henry Kessler, but we might be losing Henry Kessler. So
No.
Fair enough. Is that all you wanna leave it at that?
You said one word answer. No.
I
no,
respect your commitment to the bit there, Jacob.
no.
Speaking of St. Louis City center backs, we're on a real tear here. Joshua Yarrow's contract. I don't actually I said Joshua. I don't think that's his full name. I think his full name is Josh. Josh Yarrow's contract option was also declined. I they're renegotiating, like Grayson said, they're renegotiating. From a pure soccer standpoint, I think this is the correct decision from St. Louis City. I don't think that Josh Yaro was the best player this season, but I also really love and appreciate what he does off the field, which is it's not an equally as important component as on-field product, but it's a very critical part of being a soccer club. And in that way, Josh Yaro represents us to the best. I think that is like at 100% a player that you want representing the club. So if we are able to renegotiate Josh Yaro to a fair contract to keep him in the club and as a veteran leader in the locker room, I would be okay with that. If he doesn't end up playing for us again, I think that will be okay too. Grayson, you go first this time.
Yeah, I like Yarrow, but not when he's passing to the other team or scoring own goals or stuff like that. But other than that, I actually quite like him. I think he's pretty cool. Um, I thought it was interesting that there was some talk with San Diego, him going to San Diego in the offseason, last last offseason. So I'd be kind of interested if St. Louis would negotiate a contract and try to sell him for just some money. An MLS vet can be very helpful around the league, especially on uh, younger teams, young baby teams. So I don't know. I think it's the right move to decline the
Young
contract,
baby teams.
little baby teams. But I don't know if
MLS.
I don't know. We'll see what kind of negotiations we end with, but for now I'm saying it's a good
You're
idea.
feeling like that's the right decision. Yes, they
Right.
made the right decision to
Yeah, I think it's the
Jacob.
right decision. I don't know why we're negotiating with him.
Yeah.
If I were San Diego, I wouldn't want to trade anything for Josh Yarrow.
We'll
Maybe
take
like a
Sarkov. We'll trade you.
Yeah, we'll take Jeppe Serikov. You guys can have Josh Yaro. That's a fair trade.
San Diego won the conference. They look really good in the playoffs right now, and Josh Yarrow didn't start for a team that finished 13th in the West.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
Come on, give us to Serikov. Come
We'll take
on.
a fifth and a sixth rounder
Oh, I'm frozen.
To
negotiating.
the midfield now because this is I think I said he was a slight fan favorite in our last episode, and I stand by that. Rasmus Alm, it will
Rasmussen.
be not returning to St. Louis City next season. Gentlemen, in a similar vein, do you guys think that St. Louis City made the right decision with this one? I started us off last time. We'll rotate it over to Jacob.
It's a tough decision, but I do think it is the correct one. Um, Alm was hurt far more than he was available, even though when he was available, he was electric on the field.
Fantastic
It's
glimpses.
just tough to warrant paying him the money he was making when he's constantly in the training room and not on the pitch. Um, so I hope he gets healthy and I hope he goes and plays in a league where City never has to go against him, but I'm not mad at this move by the front office.
Dang. I didn't realize he only made one appearance this season.
Ooh,
One appearance. He made two appearances for City 2. So that's more
brutal.
than City 1. Yeah, I think uh I kind of talked a bit about it on the last episode. I'm a fan of Alm. I really like Alm. I think he brings a flair to the game. His passing is really good. His connecting play, especially with Klaus, was really good. And he had a goal in it too. But not enough. Not enough. I think in his best season he had what, two or three. So I really like Alm. I really wish we got to see more of him in a different formation because he definitely wasn't playing at the beginning of the season under Melberg, who didn't even use wingers. So it sucks that we're losing him now when we have a manager that fits his play style. But at the same time, I do think it's probably for the best.
I think this is going to be three hard yeses from the City Boys, and hard is in the like difficult to say yes to because
Yeah.
yeah, it's hard not to like Rasmus Alm. He's only really contributed on the field when available. One of my favorite moments in St. Louis City's history is that pass that early cross across the ground that he like gets upset at Celio for missing, and then João Klaus smashes it home. Just an all-time great moment, and he was a participant and he was around in year one, which I think adds that sentimental value. So it will hurt to see him go. And I wish him nothing but good health for the rest of his career, man. That has to be brutal. Our next midfield option, Jacob's favorite player of St. Louis City's history, Alfredo Morales, will be not returning. I think Jacob is has a short answer for this. Jacob, do you think we made the right call?
The smartest thing we've done in 3 years.
Fantastic business, according to Jacob. Grayson, do you have any strong feelings about this?
No, I do think moving on from him is for the best. I do. like him. I think the weirdest thing that I've seen recently was on Michael Chat City Tactics, his Twitter page. He posted recently a two graphics, player A and player B, and it was just no player names, and it just had kind of like one of those circle stat lines where it has a bunch of stats and bars to show like how good they were at these different parts of the game. And he showed player one and player two was significantly better looking in statistics. And they he would eventually quote tweet that and say that the better player was in fact Morales compared to Chris Durkin. And then he once again quoted that as like, look at that. Player one is coming back and player two got released. But to me, I don't know. I think it's pretty clear that Morales is a better passer. He's probably got a little bit more technical skill. He's got a lot more years of experience in the MLS compared to Chris Durkin. But Chris Durkin has the correct position locked down. He's the player made for that position. Instead of Morales, I think is like a true almost an eight. He'd be better in a midfield with more players, where you kind of need to rely on possession, working the ball around a bit more. But I think we needed a bit more defensive contributions in the midfield.
He's
So
better in a formation where there's more people around him to pick up his slack.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that St. Louis City is definitely making the right call on this decision to not bring Alfredo back. I understand what they were going for. It didn't pan out great, in my opinion. And that's all I have to say about that. The final player whose St. Louis City will not be, whose option will not be exercised is Akil Watts, gentlemen. Another midfielder, a player I've described as St. Louis City's utility belt just for the amount of positions that he's played in for us. He's played admirably for the club. An OG City 2 guy as well. Did St. Louis City make the right call not exercising his option? Guys, I can't lie. I'm still a little on the fence about this, but since we're a St. Louis City podcast, I will take a stance. And I'm gonna say that St. Louis City did make the right call by not re-signing Akil Watts. I think that this season did not merit a contract for him. Had it been last season, maybe, but this season, not, in my opinion, no.
Yeah, I don't want to be too harsh, but there is there's a lot of players on the St. Louis City uh in our organization that I wouldn't say are like they're not bad, but they're definitely like mediocre. Um and I feel like we need to improve in some spaces, all right? And I think upgrading in our depth positions is one of those. And yeah, like you said, Akil played all around St. Louis City, and he was very good at moments, and then not so great at other moments. I do think he will find success at another club, but I'm not sure what level that club is going to be at.
I think it was a good decision for Akil's career not to come back to St. Louis. He's very much a player that needs to be playing to stay in rhythm of game time as opposed to coming off the bench and trying to jump into matches that the pace is already heightened or the emotions of the game have already taken place and you're coming in fresh off the bench, not really antiquated to what's going on the pitch yet. Um, it sucks because he'd been here from the beginning. Like he showed up to City 2 at such a young age. I think he was 23, 22, 23 years old when he got here. And he's been here for 4 years, so he's really grown in St. Louis. So that's like it's tough for him on that aspect as well as tough for the club because we've just seen him grow up into a man. Um, but yeah, didn't warrant a contract, and I think he's gonna find success for himself somewhere else.
Yeah, I know last episode I invited him to come back to Louisville. Well, I invited him to come to Louisville. Really, it should be a return to Louisville. That's he had a pretty good season here. I want to say at the same time as Ben Lunt as well. So I would love to continue watching Akil Watts play in purple down here in Louisville, another River City.
Be sick.
Well, gentlemen, those are all the players whose contracts we have for sure declined. We are in negotiations, like I mentioned, with Henry Kessler and Josh Yarrow. One player that we did not mention is Ben Lunt, who is out of contract and entering MLS free agency. I think we talked a little about him in the last episode. Do we? I think we agreed that we should sign Ben Lunt, right?
Most
Yeah.
definitely. If the St. Louis is already in negotiations with him, I think it would be stupid to let him go. I think he's a fantastic backup goalkeeper, and we saw it this season. There was a quite a long stint for a while where we couldn't play Berkey due to injury, and Ben Lunt stood on his head. Great, great, great shift. I think he probably had what 4 or 5 games in a row where he had to start, and I thought he was fantastic. So he is definitely um, he's arguing, he's making an argument for himself that once Berkey moves on eventually, that yeah, he could become the starting goalkeeper for St. Louis City. I think we're maybe a little bit of a ways away from that, but he is making an argument for sure.
At least not till 2027.
Yeah. So we'll see.
I think that he could be a starting goalkeeper on another MLS team somewhere. I don't know. I don't know what team, but I think he could be. There's three more names that St. Louis City is currently in discussions with, boys, and these are kind of fringe players. Like you mentioned, Grayson, upgrading our depth pieces is going to be really important this offseason. And the names are Joey Zielinski, Jay Reed, and Seth Antwi. I'm going to take us out of order here. We're going to start with Jay Reed, boys. Do we think we should re sign Jay Reed to another contract? Jacob.
This is like, and this is going to be true for all three players. I wish I had an insight to the club's short list of players that they are considering bringing in replacement to do my own head to head of them. Um, but there's kind of two of them on the list already, Jay Reed versus Joey Zielinski,
Mm-hmm.
as far as outside backs go. And if I had to take one of them, I think I'd rather take Joey Zielinski than Jay Reed.
Interesting. How come? Tell us why.
Vibes,
Vibes, just pure vibes.
just
That's
pure
fair.
vibes.
I like Jay Reed's vibes a lot too. Jacob, I think I might fall on the opposite end of the spectrum here. I think if I had to pick between one of the two, I think that I would pick Jay Reed. And this is purely based on his MLS experience, where I think Joey Zielinski has more potential. I think Jay Reed is still really young, developed pretty well with St. Louis City, and made a pretty solid claim to that left back position for a good bit of time last season before returning injured in season 2 for him. So I think that I would go for Jay Reed on that front personally. Grayson, the tiebreaker. Would you pick Jay Reed or Joey Zielinski?
It's kind of easy for me. I think, um, especially if there
Ooh.
was no injury history, I'd take Jay Reed. I like Jay Reed a lot. I think his defensive. I feel like they're kind of two different players. I feel like Zelinski's maybe a little bit better of a defender, but I really like Jay Reed's offensive contributions as well. His ability to overlap and when he played last season, he liked taking on a man and he looked pretty confident in dribbling past some players. I think he still has some room to develop defensively, but I'm not saying that he's like awful, but I thought he was pretty solid, but he did get torn up a couple of times. I like Jay Reed. I think he should stick around.
All right. I think that gives us a pretty solid stance on those two players. So let's discuss Seth Antwi because I think he is 25 years old. I think he is
He
kind of
is
old for
25.
MLS Next Pro. So we're still negotiating whether or not he's going to be a first team player, plays in the center of the park as really a 6 or an 8 as far as I have seen. And I think my sample size on Seth Antwi is a little too small to determine whether I don't think like he hasn't earned a contract in my opinion because I haven't seen enough of him, especially when we have players like Miguel Perez in depth. We did decide to re-sign Chris Durkin, and of course, Edu Lovin is still the anchor of that deeper lying midfield. So for me, I'm kind of unopinionated on Seth Antwi.
Mm,
That's where I land.
I think honestly, the City 2 game yesterday was probably the most I've ever seen him play, and also be pretty involved in the play. I feel like in a couple of the uh, substitute appearances he made, the game kind of passed by. But he kind of got stuck in the City 2 game. I saw him make a lot of pretty big tackles, but also not really get too involved in the attack at all, which I get is not really his part of the game. But pretty safe passer. Put in a couple good tackles here and there, but I don't know. Same, kind of same. Like I want to say, yeah, keep him, but at the same time, I would rather us sign a new strong defensive midfielder and possibly see Durkin as that depth spot. So I don't know. It's kind of hard. What up, Bandit?
Yeah, my logic before Jacob
Readjusted.
goes is this that if I'm hoping that we are going to sign a DP6, then Seth Antwi is kind of making room for him.
Yeah.
I think we've got more of where Seth Antwi is coming from with City 2. So we have the room to let him
Mm.
go and not miss out on a ton because we've got more of what he brings still with the City 2 squad. And I don't really feel too harshly one way or the other, yes or no. So
Yeah, this is a decision that if St. Louis City goes either way, I'll be out is a thumbs up from me as far as I'm concerned.
Unless it's a DP.
Set the Antwi for a designated player.
I have to burn my jerseys. That'd be the stupidest
Very
St. Louis
extreme.
decision ever.
It's a typo. It's a typo.
And okay, to wrap up the contract talk, we did have a couple loanies that we did address in our last episode, being Conrad Vollum and Devin Padelford. I think we all agreed that we should re-sign them both. No updates on that front since
Yeah.
our last recording.
I think I feel like we are more likely to sign Conrad Vollum. I think the club really wants Paddleford, and I think he if he were a free player, then he wouldn't be taking too much money to pay him. But in terms of prying him away from Minnesota, it sounds like it's kind of be going to be a kind of a hard task. We've made, I want to say, probably one or two, maybe even three bids for him, and they've all been declined. I wish I had more information about that, like exact numbers of what we're bidding for, because apparently one of the bids was uh, uh, an overpay for him, and Minnesota apparently declined that as well. So I would love to for that to be more transparent,
I know
not
what figure did
just
we
because it's fun,
over offer? Yeah, it's weird. It's
But
also like
I was just gonna say the same thing happened to me and Jacob in FIFA career mode. We offered too little for Paddleford and they just walked away. So
They weren't even listening to
They're
other
like,
offers
oh
after
hell
that.
Yeah,
no.
his value on FIFA was like 900K, and we started negotiations at 700K. They were like, "Oh, that's just complete bullshit. We don't want to have this conversation anymore. Get out of our office." And Grayson and I were looking at each other like,
That's
What
not
the
that
fuck?
unreasonable. Yeah.
$750,000 for 60 rated Devin Padelford?
Yeah. We're already talking some big numbers here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So, yeah, I think that is the St. Louis City contract debacle pretty much broken down for you by the City Boys. Before we move into the playoffs, do you guys have any other final notes on these contract moves?
Sign Kota.
Oh,
James, the
from
only one who knows who that is. We found a couple good free agents in the FIFA marketplace. I'm sure whoever our new sporting director can find some magic too. I mean, we got Hartle for the free, so I think there's some good roster moves out there to be made. Some really good star players to be collected here at St. Louis City. I hope that we just got into the off season, so we're probably a bit far away from a new signing here. But I'm excited to see how this roster is going to change and see if the ownership is going to put their money where their mouth is. You know, if you're going to promise us playoffs last season, how much money are you going to spend this season? Then let's hear it.
in other rosters news, Lutz Pfannenstiel got appointed to the Aberdeen sporting director job today. Um, and there's outlet out there that has said that the Offer City is now calling for Lutz to be rehired, and I haven't seen that anywhere on forums except for in that posting. And I, for one, don't really want Lutz back. I don't know about you guys. I think we are moving in a direction, and getting Lutz back on the books takes us backwards almost, and I'd rather us just continue on the path we're going and let the bridge be burned.
Yeah, I like Lutz. I don't like I think if we didn't fire him, we'd probably be in a similar space. So it's what it is. I don't know. It's whatever.
Man, it looks like he misses Lutz. Yeah, I feel the same. I'm glad that he found a new club. It's no surprise to me that it is a club with history and at least a slight amount of prestige. And I wish him nothing but the best. I hope that they succeed over there. And I honestly predict that St. Louis City and Aberdeen do business sometime soon.
Aberdeen is sitting second from the bottom of the table right now for in the Premiership. So uh, get to work. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you guys for watching this far. If you have watched this far, make sure you are subscribed, like, and comment who you think is going to win the MLS Cup or who you think made the correct decisions or incorrect decisions as far as the roster negotiations, contract negotiations have taken place up until this point. I'm sure tomorrow morning after we record this episode, there's going to be news that isn't going to be involved in this episode, and it might even negate half of what we talked about because that's the world we live in. Um, if you've been listening on Spotify, everything I just said, but follow, like, and comment on there. But most importantly, folks, shout out Ethan's mom. Got to see her last night. Shout out Chris because she's recovering from knee surgery. And shout out my mom who is currently in the folds of producing a super, super cool show. I'll talk more about it when I can. And with that being said, don't forget to tell your mothers you love them. Peace. STL.
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 STL.